Thank you for that scripture reading, and thank you for that beautiful anthem. I was telling the men in the choir in the prep time before worship just how wonderful it is to have a full complement of men in a church choir. Isn't it a blessing? Oh, it is just such a blessing. And you really warm our hearts with your music. And happy Father's Day to all of you. Today we are going to be looking at this text in the book of Luke. And in it, we learn something about our own lives. You know, we have various factors that shape our lives, don't we? And Levi had a lot of factors that impacted his life. Let's first look at Levi's genes, shall we? If you consider the fact that Levi is the son of Mr. and Mrs. Alphaeus, there's a lot that could be said there. I mean, I'm sure that if you took Levi and you put him together in a family photo with all his siblings and Mr. and Mrs. Alphaeus, I am sure that there would be a lot of similarities in their physical appearance. And the same thing is true in all of our families. Any of you look like your parents or your brothers and sisters? I know a lot of people tell me that my 4 sons look a lot like me. And they also tell me that my sons are very handsome. I was doing the deduction on that one when we were at the beach recently, and we were all shirtless, and one of my boys came and grabbed my spare tire and said, "Oh, so this is what I have to look forward to." Just burst my bubble. You know, we are the children of our parents, like it or not, any which way. And we learn in our text today that Levi was the son of Alphaeus. And I'm sure that he carried with him the genes from that family. I think of my own family growing up. I had 4 sisters, and sometimes it would take my 4 sisters and my mother and me to yell at my dad just to get his attention. He'd be doing something, he had such attention deficit, we just couldn't get his attention. And then my mother, she was just always busy doing stuff, so active, sewing something, making a dress, or she made me a couple tuxedos that I wore to proms when I was a boy. She was always playing the piano or reading a book. That was the most still I ever saw her, but she was always doing something. We called her the hyper mom. And I am my parents' child. I mean, it is no coincidence that I, as a boy, tended to have some attention deficit hyperactivity. In fact, today, my children still say, "Dad, you're major ADHD." And I just look at them and I say, "So are you." And it's true. But at least they have their mother to balance them out a little bit. See, we all are the children of our parents. And Alphaeus was the father of Levi. And Levi's genes were sewn together in the limbo of his mother's womb. In the amniotic fluid in which he floated was a gene pool that was shaping who he was, that has no impact that he can make on those dimensions of his life. And we can't make them at all, for good or for bad. I remember when I really came graphically confronted this reality of being the child of my parents once when I was really sick at night with a flu bug. And I bolted up from bed and I ran into the bathroom and I went to my knees before the toilet bowl. And after I felt some kind of relief, I got up and I went to the sink in the bathroom and I washed up my hands, and then I began to wash the sweat beads from my face, and I splashed my face, and I looked in my delirious state and in my sickness. I just looked up in the mirror and I saw my father, and I shuddered. And then I literally stood back and I realized, oh wait, no, that's not my father, that's me. Have you ever had one of those experiences, just looking in the mirror and all of a sudden you see your parent and it's you? And it can be, you'll get to that place, let me tell you. You'll get there. Most of us have that experience, and one way or another, for better or for worse, we are the children of our parents. And, you think about some of our experiences, they're not all that good, the gene pool that we come from. It's a challenge. If you think of the greatest film, perhaps most successful in our lifetime, the Star Wars series, who's the great villain in the Star Wars series? Darth Vader. And who's the hero? Luke Skywalker, right? And remember the one scene? The drums are rolling, and Darth Vader says in that deep James Earl Jones voice, "Luke, I am your father." And Luke responds, "No!" We could say that ourselves at times. No! If you look at Alphaeus, just from what Levi does for a job, that Alphaeus was an individual who dabbled on the dark side himself. I mean, how is it that Levi could possibly have the job as a tax collector, collecting taxes for the traitor king Herod Antipas, if it wasn't for some kind of inside connection that the family had? And no self-respecting Jew would go to the dark side and support that empire that was dominated by Rome, and where the local Jewish potentate just paid tributes to the emperor. It was a dirty job. And yet Levi was doing it. And the message of our text is, despite the fact that Levi was the son of Alphaeus, that did not disqualify him from being called by Jesus. And Jesus came to him and said, "Follow me." Nothing in Levi's background made him unfit for following Jesus and becoming a disciple of the Son of God. And nothing in our background can disqualify us. And the message that we get in Mark's gospel and in all the gospels is Jesus comes to us in the midst of whatever situation we are in, whatever our background, and says, "Follow me." Another thing that stands out in our text is that Levi was a tax collector. This put him in a special class of people that were despised and disrespected by the vast majority of people in society at the time. People didn't like tax collectors any better in that time than they do today. And tax collectors were put together in a class of people that they wound up socializing with one another. They had their own language, their own talk. They did their own same thing together. And people would stand off and point fingers at the tax collectors because the tax collectors and the sinners would all gather and do their thing. We have groups of people that meet in enclaves, kind of like that today, professions. And sometimes we look at ourselves as we become the profession we are, like doctors and lawyers and professors and various teachers, police officers and firefighters. We become a lot of what we do, and we wind up gathering together with that niche of people in that little cadre, and we have our own language and our own culture and our own lifestyle. You've got people not only who do that kind of work, but social activities like campers and surfers and skateboarders and music geeks and foodies, and they'll wind up being all together and doing their own thing and having their own language. I was talking to a neurologist that we have here in our church, and he was telling me that he went to an international neurologist convention. Now, my neurologist friend has a goatee and glasses, and he put on his bow tie for the convention, and he got there to the convention, and every one of the doctors had a goatee, glasses, and a bow tie. Even the women. No, I'm just kidding. Nah. But I think it's very common that we just wind up being with who we're like. I think a brilliant description of this is Vincent van Gogh's first masterpiece painting. Have you seen that one, the potato eaters? In this potato eaters, they're all gathered around a dark room, and they're all serving one another, caring for each other, talking, communicating, having a meal together. And if you look at them, the color of their skin is very earthen, kind of like the earth that they dig in as potato growers. And their faces, even the knobs of their nose and their ears, they almost look like potatoes themselves. They look like the very thing that they are eating and the thing that they spend their time digging and harvesting on a regular basis. And in the picture is a fabulous, brilliant picture. It's a circle of people, and to the back, we see this one girl that you can't really see her face because we only see her back. And she's sitting at the table, like facing the rest of the people at the table. And you can tell she's a young girl, but you kind of want to just get into the picture and look around and see what her face looks like. And you think, I wonder if she's a potato-eating person too, if she has a potato face herself, or if she's going to gain a potato face from just hanging around with these people. And maybe that's going to happen. But then again, maybe not. Our scripture tells us that we are more than what we do. And we are more than who we're with. And we're more than who our parents are. We're more than dirt diggers and potato eaters. We're more than medicine dispensers and law interpreters and number accountants and thing producers and consumers. We are more than all of that because we've been called by Jesus. And Jesus says, "Come, follow me." And that's a wonderful thing. It makes us children of God. And then we are ushered into this fabulous community of faith. And one of the things in Mark's gospel that he really wants us to reflect upon is don't get just religion confused with faith. Because here Levi comes into this faith community, and the religious people stand off and criticize. What the Gospel of Mark is telling us is some people look at religion as do's and don'ts, this and that. We stand at this point, we sing at this point, we eat this kind of thing, we gather at this time on this day, we do this, we don't do that, and we look at other people that are different than us and point the finger at them. And that's what the religious people around Levi were doing. They were standing off to the side, pointing in, saying, "What in the world is Jesus doing with those guys?" And the message for us is that Jesus has a place for all of us. It's a community of love and embrace, of care and of faith, where we share with one another and embrace one another and don't sit in judgment on each other, but we give to each other love and grace. A Catholic friend of mine was reflecting on this whole concept together with me, and he said, "Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a Catholic school I heard of." I said, "Tell me about it." He said, "Well, in this Catholic school, Sister Mary asked all the children, 'What do you want to be when you grow up?' And one of the little girls said, 'When I grow up, I want to be a prostitute.'" And the sister said, "What? What did you say?" She said, "When I grow up, I want to be a prostitute." And she goes, oh, okay. I thought you said Protestant. It's very easy for us to get so parochial in our thinking that we always look at that person and put them on the outside. But one of the messages that God has for us in this passage of Scripture is that God looks at the prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors and even the Protestants, and He has a place for us. His word to us is come. Follow me. And those words are more powerful than any gene pool you swim in.